right. I'm going to hit go. Oh, I'm going to go live now, Michael, but it's not giving me the option.
I think we're already live.
Oh, hold on. And live video is starting, but not started yet. We're so close. All right, here we are. Great. We're getting ready to go. We've got comments, questions, everything ready. Well,
Now
let's go
live on our channel.
Well, I guess this is going to be a little bit warmer of a cold open, but I'm gonna do it. I don't know how people do this well when they got to worry about all these moving parts. But
I'm not sure.
Well, if you're tuning in with us right now, welcome. This is our very first Level Up student ministry training. We wanted to create Level Up because student ministry leaders should never feel like they're leading alone. That is not something we are called to do. And so this monthly training is going to be something where we want to give you practical tools, fresh perspectives, and encouragement about topics that matter the most in student ministry. And we could not imagine a better way to launch than by celebrating the impact of young women in student ministry. Throughout Scripture, God has used women to shape the story of his people. From Mary sitting at the feet of Jesus to Timothy's mother and grandmother passing down their faith. And today he's still raising up young women who are ready to lead and with courage and conviction. And so we are thrilled to kick off with Hannah Mann, who's with us. Hannah has been serving in Next Gen ministry literally across the world, from the United Kingdom to Fuge camps to Christian higher education universities. And now she is the Next Gen director at Discovery Point Church in Arizona. And this month, she's going to be stepping into a brand new season with her podcast, Where My Girl's At, a space designed to champion and equip women in student ministry. And so we are honored to have Hannah here and live with us tonight, and to start this conversation to set the tone for what these monthly Level Up trainings are going to be about. If you don't know me, my name is Ian Dunaway. I'm with Shaping Student Ministry and Youth Pastor Central. And with me hosting as well, I have John Oliver, who is not only a co-host of mine on the Shaping Student Ministry podcast, but also just one of my best friends in ministry, and as a co-founder of Shaping Student Ministry, who partners with Youth Pastor Central. So thank you, Chris Allen, for letting us do this. Now let's make everybody big on screen. I feel awkward now. There we go. Listen,
was that a setting, or was that our technical support?
It was technical support, but I want to assume that it was like a miracle spiritual moment where I just raised my hands and things change.
Yeah, that was pretty cool that you were like, let's bring it back, and bam, bam. It's like we've done this before.
It's a great start.
It was a pretty big win. Hannah, how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you guys?
Good.
I'm fantastic. I'm doing good. It's 9:33 here p.m.
Oof.
It is probably 8:33 at Ian's place, and it is
6:30 in Arizona.
6:30 in Arizona. So
you might be asking the question, why did we pick this ungodly hour on Thursday night? And there's a reason. We used marketing and AI, and we looked at the analytics of this whole group of 9.2 thousand people, and it said that this particular hour every week was the most trafficked hour in the group. So we may change the times, and the nice thing about Facebook is you'll see that, but this is the first time. We're going to get better as we go. So
and as of right now, I think Daniel H is the only one. But there's several people listening. Daniel's just laughing at us. This feels like such an odd reaction. But anyway,
as you're looking at this, though, just so you guys know, whether you're on YouTube, we got 7 viewers right now. We want you to post in the comments. Let us know that you're here with us.
Yeah, where are you watching?
Yeah, if you got questions, this is going to be very casual, us talking back and forth, walking through everything, and we're going to do brief Q&As. So if you just start throwing questions in there, and it's like student ministry, there are no stupid questions, just stupid student pastors for answering them. So we're going to answer them, and we're going to make it happen. So we're excited to do this. Hannah, tell us a little bit about you. Tell us about your journey to Arizona. Where are you from originally?
I'm from Arizona. So I actually left Arizona a bunch and then was like, I need to go home. So yeah, I grew up here. I love the desert. We don't have scary weather except big dust storms and rain twice a year. So we're pretty, safe. love that.
Yeah.
And I one summer just was like, I'm about to graduate college and going to be a real adult, and I don't want to do that. So I was like, I need to do something fun. And then just through like the Lord's timing, I ended up working my first summer of Fuge camps in Florida. And you people with humidity, I don't know how you do it.
The worst.
Yeah. But I worked Fuge camps in Florida in 2017, fell in love with youth ministry, student ministry, came home immediately, started working at my church, and then worked another summer in 2018. That's actually where I met Ian. He brought his kids to Shorter, Georgia.
Oof, Shorter.
Shorter.
what I did place. Not know that that's how y'all met.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
R.I.P. That location no longer exists.
Now that's for the best. For the best. We met there. It's crazy that we met in Shorter, and that was a period in student ministry where I wasn't doing student camps. My own student camp. I was doing that, but I had worked for Lifeway, so I decided to go to Fuge later. But then after that, we meet back again in England, right?
Yeah. So after I worked 3 summers of Fuge, I went to England, worked with an organization called UK USA. So did youth ministry over with young English people. We would go into schools and hang out with them, do after school clubs, talk to them about Jesus. It was actually really cool. We had like very easy access to be in like the lunchroom and stuff. So did that. And then COVID hit and I had to leave England to come home. So there was only 13 airports in America I could choose to fly into.
It's crazy.
Because they weren't letting international flights come through. So I was one of the last 5 flights out of Heathrow, which that is like a hop in airport normally.
Yeah, it is.
And it was weird. Yeah. So I came home.
Yeah, go ahead.
Tried to apply for jobs. No one's hiring because it's COVID. I'm like, Lord, what am I supposed to do? End up finding a really cool program in Kauai where I got to serve. It was like 18 to 25. So I was on the high end of the group. So I just got to pour into 18, 19, 20-year-olds, walk with them as they learn to walk with Jesus, and then came back, worked at GCU with college students for 3 years, Grand Canyon University. I was a resident director. So resident assistants, college students that lived in my building community. Crazy. College is a weird time for people and figuring out who they are and all that good stuff. But my heart in that time always was in student ministry. So I was serving at my local church even while I worked at the college, and then knew that someday, hopefully the Lord would open the door for full time. And then last September, I actually just hit a year. I've been doing student ministry full time. So the short version of a pretty crazy journey.
That's a big deal. It's a big journey that you've had. It's been cool that in the last 10 years, though, to watch God work in your life and even to bring us back together. You work a lot with SSM. Your podcast is launching on Shaping Student Ministries Network. So that's really cool. Very excited to do that. And so as we get ready to kind of jump in, time is short. We got about 10 minutes into 60. It goes fast. Be thinking about, different things that you want to shoot out there. If you want different questions. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. It's late, but practical encouragement is what we're going to focus on. We want to practically encourage you as a student pastor. We want to really focus on how do you pour into young women well in your student ministry. I think that there's a disconnect there a lot of times with not only that, but there are, and we want to frame this discussion, whereas it's not an argument over should women be elders or head pastors or anything. I mean, there are places for those arguments. For us, we just know very practically there are women like you, Hannah, all through the country. We're with student leaders and student ministry pastors all over the country. And there's a lot of women out there making a big difference in the lives of student ministries. There are women leaders. There are at least 50% women in student ministries, but they're far more. So, but if you got a 50-50 shot of having them, and how we pour in and develop disciples is incredibly important. And so we're not going to focus on pitting one against the other, just really how can we lift up women tonight? Because you got to think about it. The Bible is full of great women who led the church courageously, right?
Yeah. Well, and I would just say before we even get into them, like when I think back through my student ministry experience, and I've shared this with Hannah, but when I think back through my student ministry experience growing up in the church, thankfully I have grown up with a woman in my home, my mother, who is an absolute champion for Jesus.
Yeah.
And I am who I am, and I love Jesus the way I love him, and a huge part to my mother. But I also like there was a woman student minister that I had named Laura Reich, and there were others that were women in leadership in our youth ministry that like I love Jesus the way that I love him because of these amazing women who love Jesus, who have poured their life into me along the way. And so we need to be championing the women in our ministry in huge ways. And so we're not just having this as a like we feel like we need to check the box and have this conversation. Like we're having this conversation because we want to absolutely see women champion and thriving and pouring into students all over the country. And we just happen to think Hannah is one of the best ones doing it. And but yeah, so to your point, there are biblical role models for us to look at. So I've already pointed out earlier that I think that there's a huge one. There's a huge one in Dorcas that I always think of. That it is a timeless name that just seems it was probably a poor name at any point in history, but
fair enough.
But an incredible one, known for her acts of service, known for her compassion. We read about her life and how she impacted her community in Acts. I just think, what an unfortunate name. And I apologize if anybody is named Dorcas out there, but you should really blame your parents.
I think I always tease like with people, and I love the fact that Christ has done more to serve and elevate women, who he created, by the way, than anybody else in history. And and you get this idea that if you're a believer, whether you're a conservative believer or not, or whatever you are, that man, you must really dislike women and think that they're lesser. And I think that that's absolutely such a false statement because of the way that Jesus acted. One of those, Mary and Martha, is one of my favorite misunderstood stories. Because we always make it, Betty Bible Drill jumps up and she's just like, well, listen, let me just tell you, some of y'all need to stop being busy and just stop serving, sit at the feet of Jesus, that's probably a good principle, but it's not really the point of the story. And so actually the point of that story is that Martha comes out, Mary is sitting at Jesus's feet with the men, where women are not allowed in the first century to sit, and she's being discipled by a rabbi, and that is a big no-no culturally. And so when Martha comes out and goes, she should be back here with me helping clean up and helping cook, the point was not about service. It was, God, she's dishonoring my home. And what does Jesus do? He looks at Martha and says, no, Martha, you should be sitting here too, because you deserve and need to be developed in the same way. And so God deeply loves women serving. There should be no, whether you're complementarian, egalitarian, whatever you are, there is no reason that we should not be able to invest and see young women poured into to love and chase Jesus and to help do the same with others. I'm the same way. Go ahead.
Have y'all heard? I mean, this may be something I heard incorrectly a long time ago. And if it is, I've been saying it incorrectly a long time. But if you look at the way Jesus taught, Jesus often taught in Aramaic because it was a language that women and children understood. And so he made his teaching accessible to women and children.
Two groups of people that were not, two groups of people that were totally lesser and lower class to everybody.
Totally.
Right? Yeah.
That's what I love too. Like Mary was the first person to last at the cross.
Yes.
First at the tomb. First person to see Jesus. First person to ever share, not even first woman, first person ever to share the gospel. And so why would he choose someone whose testimony wouldn't even stand in a court of law?
Yeah.
And he's like, that's who I want to be the first person.
It's so good
to go tell the disciples, and not in like, I mean, I am pretty competitive, so it's pretty cool that she was first, but not that it's about being first, but that's the thing is, like, it's not a competition. Like, there is place for both, but I do think the Lord just like made it so clear that it is valuable and important that women have a place in the body of Christ. And so, and I also, a lot of people I think struggle with this because of writings that Paul has, but also if you read Romans 16, which Paul also wrote, there's a bunch of women in there that he's talking about, but like, thank so-and-so because she's working hard for the Lord. And so same guy. I think we just get kind of caught up in the weeds, and it's like, call me director, call me pastor, call me Kelly. I don't really care. I just want to tell.
Call me Kelly.
I don't know if I'm going to call you Kelly.
I just want to tell students about Jesus, like,
yeah.
And I think we just get caught up in these tough stuff. But then I read how Jesus walked with women, and I just know, like, there's a place for me. There's a place for other women, a place for girls growing up in ministry who want to serve Jesus. And I don't really like you were saying, you can argue about the other pieces, but I think that's ultimately what the heart boils down to. First person to ever share the gospel was a woman, and it's pretty cool.
But
you talked about Acts 16 or Romans 16, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Phoebe is the one that I think of a lot. Number one, because I'm a huge Friends fan, but number two, like, it's so incredible. Like, Phoebe's mentioned as this carrier, this courier, this one who takes the letter, but like, of all of, like, there's so many people when you talk to them about, like, what's your favorite book of the Bible? What's so many people are like, oh, Romans. And it's like, man, we wouldn't have that if it was not for Phoebe.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, just awesome. I just always think of her and how Paul goes out of his way. Like, Paul didn't have to mention her, but he did. And that was an important detail for us.
Yeah.
And because it's an important detail that it was worth mentioning, it should shape the way that we think about Phoebe, and it should shape the way that we think about women who serve.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a Tuesday night girls Bible study that we do with some of the girls. And one of the questions one of the weeks was like, who would you want to meet from the Bible or be friends with? And I was like, Phoebe. Like, we don't know a lot about her, but she just seems like a baller. And they were like, I don't even know who that is. I was like, let's talk about her. There's not much to know, but she carried the letter of Romans. Like, it's pretty cool. So, yeah.
I think we're, at that point, and the truth is, anybody that agrees with us is going to be like, okay, guys, maybe get to the point. Anybody that disagrees with us, our hope is that maybe you see the value in this, and we're just helping you see through it a little bit. But at the end of the day, God has incredible callings and plans for every one of us, men, women. And I think the problem is not, absolutely, there are differences, and there are very distinct differences and things that God will call us to do, or different ways that we approach that. But I think we have to get better at approaching it. And we have to get better at taking care of the students that we lead. And so, I put it in the chat, but if I'd love to hear what your favorite, what woman in the Bible inspires you most. I really like the woman at the well, just because, kind of like Mary, she's one of the first. They always say she's the first evangelist, like that. Jesus sends her to her town and she tells everybody. But I think at the end of the day, we know that God's entrusted women to be visible, to be valuable, to be advancing his kingdom. And so our job is to echo that calling. So Hannah, let me ask you this question, kind of talking about healthy mentorship and what that looks like. When you first stepped into ministry, how were you mentored and encouraged? Because you've been on several mission fields. You've been in student camps, which carries with it all kinds of things you have to be inoculated for, and, and scary things and terrible situations, all the way to you've been across the ocean, and then all the way back. And so you've been in a lot of contexts. When you've done that, what did healthy mentoring and encouragement look like for you?
Yeah, I've actually just been like so blessed with the people that have come alongside me. Almost to the point where I think it made me like a little naive for a while. Like, this conversation didn't really used to mean that much to me, because I just wasn't really affected by it until a couple years ago. Big conversations were being had, and I just was kind of like, what does the Bible actually say about this? Am I like wrong to think I should be in ministry, and kind of working through that? But when I first came back from camp, I had felt a very strong calling to ministry. And so I met with my pastor, and I was like, this is what happened over the summer. This is what I think the Lord is doing in my heart. I love student ministry. I want to see if this is something maybe that the Lord is calling me to full time, or if not, how I can serve, what's the best fit. And he literally was just like, let's do it. We actually didn't have a student minister at the time at my church. We were looking. So it was me and two other guy interns. We were kind of just like doing it as a team. And like, there was no difference between them and me. Like, it was never like, oh, I'm going to talk to the boys and then I'm going to talk to Hannah. It wasn't, we just functioned as a team, and it was where does Hannah serve best? Where does Ricky serve best? Where does Cole serve best? And it wasn't about, oh, well, you're a girl, so you can't do that. It was just, where has God gifted you and how do you best serve? So it wasn't just like, hey, Hannah, can you decorate the youth room so it looks good and pretty? And can you get all the snacks? Like, it was like, man, I love games. So I would run games, you know, like, I'm super competitive. And that actually really helped me connect with the boys. And then when it was a rotation to teach and it was my turn to teach, it wasn't like, oh, we're going to skip her. I got to teach. I was mentored on how to grow and be better in an encouraging way. And so I think Corey is his name, just did such a good job as developing me as a leader first, not based on my gender first. But then what he saw in me, he empowered me to do those things and just gave me opportunities and coaching. And so just such a good job of just giving me space to serve and being like, yeah, let's see what you got. Let's develop that. And then ultimately a couple months later, he was like, until we find someone, you're the interim. If you've got questions, let me know. Run the show, kid. And so I just really I'm just so thankful for that. I was really like throw in the deep end and figure it out. But that whole time I had such freedom, but he was always also right there. So that is just like, I think the best way is just like, look at the gifts that the people have. Don't try and like, oh, well, she's a girl, so she can only do girls ministry. Well, what if she has something valuable to teach in this setting? What if she would be really great at running the games? What if she's really into sports and is connecting with those junior high boys during dodgeball? And so I think that's just the way to go about it, is just see what they can do and then call that out and encourage it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Like, if you just take gender out of the equation altogether and you just, as a leader and as a shepherd, you think about your people, your desire for them should be to leverage their giftings, not your assessment without understanding them. So often we can just kind of give a rash generalization about someone based off what their pastimes are, like the things that they do or whatnot. Like, full transparency for me, like, so I played football growing up and I was always involved in those kind of things, but I'm also a real artsy dude. So like I've always loved like serving a children's ministry and doing crafts. But people don't want to put me with crafts. They want to put me in the rec.
They want you holding up some type of heavy thing because you're so big.
But I'm actually really good at doing crafts and I'm not super good at doing rec. And so but people can make rash generalizations, and I'm probably not going to hear the end of the fact that I'm a big craft guy. But
you are very crafty.
It just is what it is. I am a crafty guy. I'm a crafty man.
People are going to be like, listen, like, the craft beer? What craft? Craft mac and cheese? There's a lot of crafts out there.
Well, if my wife is watching, and she probably is, I am very particular when it comes to like the Christmas tree at our house. Like, I have to be the one to do the ribbon because I can do the one. I'm the only one that can do the ribbon.
Yeah.
All I know is you sent me the most stellar hand-drawn turkey for Thanksgiving last year, and I put it up on the fridge. So
I did.
Anyway, all that to say, listen, Josh, let's go to the comments for a second. Villers, Joshua Villers, thank you for saying it, man. Watching my mom and dad teach, or my dad and mom, he said, teach, guide, grow my brothers and I in our faith was huge. Women are crucial in a young man's faith, especially in preparing them for marriage and leading a family. As we look at this and we're kind of walking through it, I think you did say something that's really interesting. It has everything to do, I think, in the hustle and the bustle of things. I would tell you that this is maybe not even a young women, young men problem as much as it's a cultural problem anymore, where it's consumer. And I'm going to tell, and I think it means so much whether you're looking, no matter who you're looking with, but let's just say for young women and what they're doing. When I see Jesus and I see Jesus connect to somebody, John and I talk about this a lot. My three big student ministry principles when I would lead student ministry is find, engage, connect. I still tell my leaders that find, engage, connect, because you notice in these moments that Jesus absolutely, when he looks and he sees, and some people, it's not if they're in your vicinity or not. The truth is, so many people will be discipled well, or will see the value God has for them and sees in them, and it's just a matter of sight. Like, are you really paying attention to say, oh man, I think that's even a scary culture where we'd go. It's probably so scary, the culture anymore, that we wouldn't even say, well, you just do the girl things, like, and we move. But it's just this idea that, do you really know, do you know what your students are gifted in, and are you willing to help train them up and put them in charge of things? And I think that there are just so many great things. You're right, Joshua. Same thing with my mother, to the same, but when you look, I think about women at church. I think about like Kathy McClure. I think about Kim Phillips. I think about all these ladies that poured into me just as a kid while we were up at church. And I remember seeing exactly how God used them. But I think the question is, it's not about proving somebody can do something or trying to fit somebody somewhere because of a certain thing. I mean, you look at Lydia, first European convert, she's just a rich businesswoman. Yeah. And she's financing the church. You look at, I don't know about Dorcas. I don't know much about her, but I would tell you,
dies and raises from the dead. I'm serious.
That's right. I do remember. Yeah. It's been a while since I've read about Dorcas. Yeah. But yeah, so you just look throughout all of this, and I think that's a huge takeaway. Look for the gifts God's placed in the young men around you, and then give them real opportunities. Give them places to shine. 4, let's talk about cultural attentions for a minute and leadership development. Today's culture, there are leaders that maybe hesitate to develop young men and women, especially young women, just because of anxieties around gender in general, right? It's tough. Like, sometimes I think most of us might agree one way or the other on a lot of where all that lies. Some of us may not, but I think that there is enough hesitation around how do we approach this, and how do we, because there are distinctives about who we are and what God calls us to do. And you want God to call young women to be the women he's designed them to be. You want them to shine, because it doesn't take more than 20 minutes in a student ministry room to realize that you're probably going to want to hang out with young women more than you're going to hang out with young men if you value your life, right? Like, if you have a stress problem, like, it doesn't matter if you're in 12th grade or you're in 6th grade, like, you're jumping off of stuff, you're doing whatever. But there are definitely differences in how we're wired and what we do. And so many of the jobs, though, that we do are intersecting. But like, just look at this. Barna research shows that 35% of young women identify as non-leaders, compared to 26% of young men. So that seems odd. That's one. Those numbers are too high anyway for both, but that's a 10% increase almost. The second stat is 82% of young adults, 18 to 35, believe that there's a leadership crisis, talking about a lack of opportunities to lead. So then it's not just enough to say, well, are you recognizing them, but are you focused on creating a show for your people to come to and to consume at, or are you spending that time creating opportunities for your students to serve?
Yeah, that's a discipleship issue.
And it's honestly, I do think based on the first stat that young women bear the brunt of that. I think that like, it's clearly there's less leadership emphasis with them than there is. But the question, I guess, becomes,
this is kind of one we didn't talk about, and I'm just going to jump in, but
yeah, go for it.
Like, did someone call that out of you, or did you always kind of feel like you needed to be a leader? Like, because I feel like so many times we just need somebody to identify it and call it out of us.
Yeah. I'm the oldest in my family. And I kind of I've just kind of always been one. I don't know if I think like part of it is just like natural, the older sibling being like, I would just tell them what to do and like how to play. And if they didn't want to do that, then I'd just go play by myself. But even as I got older, I just was like naturally put into positions. Like, it wasn't necessarily like I was trying to be like, I'm in charge. It just was like, hey guys, let's do this. And we would do that. But then as I got older, then I had people start to see that and channel it. So I think it was always a natural thing. But then I had leaders in my life who were like, okay, Hannah has natural leadership ability. But now how do we help her cultivate that, funnel that, use that in a way that is helpful? But yeah, I mean, even sometimes I tell people to do like something random and then they do it. And I'm like, why did you do that? Like, but I like look for that in students now because I like know that kid. Like, I'm like, whether you even realize that's happening, like at the time I didn't really, but I look back at my life and I'm like, oh, okay, I think that was something that the Lord always kind of had placed in me. And so I look for those kids. I'm like, hey, when you lead the way, they follow you, whether you know or not. Like you are leading this room as much as I am on the other side of things. And so like, yeah, I think I that's what I'm saying. Like, I really just am so blessed with the people that I've had mentor me and lead me.
Yeah, we have kids like that, and I always, you have kids that come along that are leaders, and they have a God-given trait of being a leader. And those who have the God-given trait of being the leader, they're the ones that you call to the side and you tell them like, "Hey, just because you're like God has gifted you with leadership and you are choosing not to lead right now. But
Yeah,
guess what? You're still leading because you are a gifted leader and people follow you because God has gifted it to you and you are abusing that gift by leading people in the wrong direction
yeah,
and calling them to say, like, take this God-given gift and lead them to Jesus. Stop leading them in your direction.
totally.
Absolutely. So let's talk for a second about the practical problems then of the student pastors, student ministry leaders. I don't get, listen, this is a big group. And if you're watching this, whether you're watching it live or you're going to watch it pre-recorded, you matter, by the way. Every student ministry leader matters. It doesn't matter if you're paid, if you're co-vocational, bivocational, maybe you just like students and you have a small group. It doesn't matter. If you're here listening to it, you matter and you lead. God has designed you to lead well. And so when we look at what are the problems that student pastors or student ministry leaders are facing, the first one is, let's just ask this question: how do we disciple young women without making gender the focus? It's obviously an important factor, but how do you do it without making it the focus? We've talked a little bit about that, but how would you flesh it out?
Man, as we were like kind of preparing for this, like just literally back to the beginning kept coming back to my mind. Like I just kept going back to Genesis 1:26, where it's like male and female, he created them. So there is obviously a beautiful distinction. Like it wouldn't have been like a male and female. It would have just been like he created them and that would have been enough. Yeah. And so I do think like there is beauty in what is different also. Like, John can do crafts better than I can maybe, and I can lead rec better than John can maybe, but
that's an established fact.
Fair.
But like ultimately neither of us, I'm not thinking about John's a guy doing crafts. I'm just thinking, no, like he's gifted to do that better. But I do think there is like beauty though in recognizing the different things, like without being stereotypical. I do think there are things that more naturally tend to fall one way or the other. Like I would say, when I look at a room of students, I see the kid that is sitting by themselves. And so I typically will tell one of my guy leaders, hey, will you go say something to so-and-so. And it's not that they're dumb or they're not paying attention. We just have a different lens of how we're looking at the room. And so I have to have them there. Like I cannot do student ministry without the men that are leading in my ministry. I just can't, because they're also going to relate to the boys in a way that I can't. I've never been a 16-year-old boy. I don't know what it is like. I don't know how to experience that. And so because that's the case, let me celebrate those male leaders and equip them and empower them to pour into those boys and not feel like, man, I can't fill that gap. Like I can't feel stressed that I can't fill a hole that I'm not even created to fill. Like, and so I think it's just beautiful to be like those biblical women we talked about. Let's talk about that. The women the girls that you see leadership qualities in, speak that into them and be like, hey, you are gifted in this way. And the Lord has empowered you as a woman to go in places where I can't go. And so I think instead of making it, I think the other thing I've been thinking about is it never was like, hey, you want to go into ministry and you're a woman, that's going to be really hard. No one ever said that to me. But I do think that has become kind of a conversation. Like, oh, are you ready for that? Are they ready for you? I think that's maybe more a little bit of the issue. So yeah, I think it's more about celebratory of who God has created you to be, focusing on that, like the beauty of the distinctiveness, and not so much the downside of like pitting each other against each other or being divisive about it.
You know, you say something, you're saying what is implicitly the reverse of that John and I have talked about before. And I think that the church, I think we have a whole lot less problems with some of this and even less awkwardness approaching it if we, so often we're only focused on what people can't do, men or women. What can you not do? What are you not supposed to do? And we have done I think we've done an incredibly poor job of doing the exact opposite. Now what you're saying, oh man, do you know that you're gifted to do this? Do you know that there's so much you can do? Let me explore what you can do. It's the same idea that you can look at 100 Christians and you can say from all over the country and say, what have you been saved from? And they all, oh, sin, death, alcoholism, broken the ball.
Right.
What have you been saved for?
Yeah, we don't have that conversation
because we're not for people, right? We're not for kind of people. We're always like, oh, I'm against this, I'm against that. But if we would focus less on
that's the creation thing too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's a creation thing too, because you look at what happens when God tells Adam that they can have any of the fruit of the trees, they cannot eat of that. And then when Satan brings doubt into their minds and they go, instead of responding and like, you can't eat of this, they don't go, yeah, but look at all of this that God gave us. And I go to my in-laws and
look at the
my in-laws have like 2 acres, just like a square acre. And they have 2 dogs that are outside all the time. And when you go to their house, there is a trail, just a dirt trail all the way around the edge of the property. Yeah. And I always think how indicative it is of creation that those dogs have worn a trail all around that property because they spend all of their time walking on the very edge, looking at the things that they can't have access to. And the yard is beautiful and full of things for them to enjoy. And they never touch it because they're so focused on being on the edge of what they can't have.
Right.
And so we need to be really good about championing what people can do within the scope of the church and where they can serve. And stop looking at what we say you can't be a part of and start looking at here's what we can unleash you to do in the kingdom of God, to do something you love for the glory of God and do it strategically for the mission of God.
Yeah.
Well, I think Hannah said it, and what you're saying, John, I think is so good. And we also need to be able to teach young men and young women how to share gifts with one another.
Yeah.
And so like this idea, like Dennis said it in the comments a minute ago. He said, young ladies are culture setters in my ministry. An example, one girl who got saved became the one inviting everyone to youth ministry. And I sat there and think sometimes things are stereotypes because they're just true, but women are social creatures. And men will die hermits, like before they ever do. It is this idea that you want to look at your young women, or Hannah, what you're doing with your male leaders. Like men will come in and they will think, I did some good ministry tonight, and they might have done some good things, but they'll just be alone the whole night. And that's just how we're wired, because we need each other. But this idea of how often are you looking and saying, hey, you 3 girls, you need to go make those guys talk. You need to go help bring people in here. Like there is an idea, I think, of gift sharing. So that's wonderful. Celebrate who your young women are, who God designed them to be, not just what they can't do. Problem number 2, I think we're actually right on time too, by the way. Problem number 2, if there aren't many women leaders, and this is, I believe the last stat I saw, but I didn't look at it for this, was like 70% female is the church right now. So this may not happen everywhere, but John and I work with enough student pastors. Hannah's in our ministry working with them. There are some student ministries that are just all guys too. So, or mostly guys. What if there aren't many women leaders to serve as role models and to serve as disciples? Like because Titus 1 and 2 does get to this, that God designed men to pour into men, and God designed women to pour into women, and there needs to be crossover for sure. But like when you're looking for good female leaders, what if you're struggling to find them? What's the solution to that, Hannah?
Man, I mean, I think, I've been at, not only is this my first year, I just completed my first year, but this is also my first year at this church. And so a lot of it is like just being a part of your church body and knowing who is a part of this local body that I am going to church with. And not only that, but looking for who has different gifts than I do. I'm really loud. I'm really outgoing. And so sometimes that can be kind of intimidating for some of the kids that are a little more quiet, because it can feel like, oh, wow, you're a lot, And so, but I have some awesome leaders who aren't quite as loud and they connect great with those kids. And so I think it's not like you're getting to know people in the church. So it's like, oh, I come serve in my youth ministry, but it's like as you get to know people, hey, where are you serving at? I've just noticed that you're like really good at having conversation. And I think you would be awesome in leading small group. Have you ever thought about doing that? But that comes because you have first chosen to be relational with these people. And so I think some people don't even know that they would like it. Right? Like, I have to go Wednesday night. Like I work all week. That's a lot. But then they come and they're like, this is the best night of the week. And maybe they come and they're like, yeah, it's not for me. And that's okay. I think we also need to be willing to let people try it. And if they're like, hey, this is not going to be a fit for me, no harm, no foul. Like, I appreciate you giving time to try it, and it's totally okay that this isn't a good fit for you. And so I think, recruiting is kind of always an issue, right? But I'm so blessed where I'm at. Like we just have been able to do a really good job of, I'll do announcements in big church, and I
love that you call it big church too.
I know.
Some people don't do that anymore.
I'll talk about what we're doing in youth ministry. We had an awesome Next Gen Sunday after the summer. And so I think also within your church, creating visibility for your ministry. So it's not, we meet in a completely separate part from where our sanctuary is. And so it would be really easy to not think about us. And so that's why it's so important to have a supportive pastor who is like, let's talk about what God's doing in the youth ministry. And then I had someone come up to me and say, hey, I'm praying about serving. And I pray all the time, like, Lord, if there's someone who needs to be here, needs to be serving, like bring the people. But then I do my part in getting to know the people and being available. If they're like, man, I want to serve, how can I do that?
Well, and as pastors and ministry leaders too, like it's our job to identify people within our congregation who, male or female, like if there are people who are lifetime single people and they are single to the glory of God, to go to them and say, hey, I need students to see someone living a life of contentment in Christ and not in a relationship. Can you come and just be a person that models that for them? Hey, I see you as a godly wife or as a godly husband. Can you just come model that for our kids? By the way, all you really need to do is just speak their name kindly and just get to know them. But I just need them to see a husband and a wife who will submit to Christ and his church as they serve together. Can you do that? And when you go to people and you call that out of them, I think that that's one of the ways that you get some of your most amazing volunteers, because you're calling something out in them that they're probably insecure about or not sure of, but you're able to see that and call them out in them. I think it just helps to bring people into those roles.
Well, John, you're really good at this, but explaining the why, I think, is in those moments too is so big. But I love the idea of saying they need to see that, because I think we underestimate how incredibly, how anemic the home is. In a way, like the idea, years and years ago when we started doing student ministry, I remember people, it was just as catchy as saying now when people say, it's not the next generation, it's generation now. There's always those things that we say that, that people we feel like we're cute. Maybe some of you
are not the future of the church. They're the church today.
That's right.
We all know
the future now. So but but you know, years ago, and I think it's still true. I think it's more true now than it ever has been because relationships are so bad. But at the end of the day, we would be fools to believe that students hear, "I love you, I'm proud of you," that they hear their name. We talk about this all the time, John. What you just said about Dale Carnegie, the sweetest thing you can ever hear is the sound of your name spoken kindly. And so this idea that I don't think that we give enough due to the separate individual roles, like how homes struggle so much when they don't have a strong dad at home, when they don't have a strong mom at home. And like, but there's so much that we learn from both of those roles being done well. And it kind of begs the question, how do we help cross-generational discipleship? Because we also have to be wise people. So we're going to assume, I'm going to make this assumption, but I'm going to state it. So I guess I'm not assuming it, that you have background checked your leaders, that you're making sure you have safe people and not groomers or not anybody that would be predatory. But outside of that, when you do have healthy men and women, you know, we have to also think about wise situations, what that we're putting people in. But how do you, Hannah, I'm interested to hear how this works for you, because you've had so many interactions as well, being developed with men that have poured into your life. How do you do that in an appropriate and healthy way, that your young women are able to see godly men and be able to hear from them without putting them in situations that may or may not be wise?
Yeah, we have I have really awesome leaders. And so we have, like, I'd say one way that's really easy, safe, practical is like we have a teaching team. So you're hearing from men and women consistently teaching. And I would say, like, I have a married couple in my ministry, and they do everything together. Like if you're texting one of them, you're texting both of them. I think that's a really solid fail safe.
Yep.
And even when I'm meeting with students, even of the same gender, I just tell my pastor, hey, if I'm going to the coffee shop, I'm going here, I'm meeting with this student. I think just so people know where you are. But I do think it's totally appropriate with my office door open and someone else in the office for if a guy that I've really connected well with wants to come and have a conversation about going into ministry, I think that's totally acceptable. And so I think it's on your end being wise about how you're doing things. So that way you're never in a situation where you're like, oh, is this good or not good? And, you know, I always have a couple, if kids are getting late to be picked up, which happens all the time. Other leaders stay with me. Yeah, the other leaders just stay with me because you know, they know, like, it's a crazy world we live in now. And so just being mindful. But like, I haven't even said that to them now that I'm thinking about it. I was like, did I actually ever specify that? Or maybe that's just like the culture, like we're all just gonna hang out till all the kids leave. I don't know. But I mean, I think being as clear as possible and making sure that like if their parent was like, hey, I'm going to meet Hannah at the church, like you know, they would be like, oh, Pastor Greg is there. You know what I mean? Like the parent would never be like, what are you doing? You know? So I think just having those fail safes.
I love that. So it's really, because this may be the thought in your mind as some of you are listening to this is, well, do I really need to worry about that? Like, don't I just need women? And I get that. I think that but I think you've got to have, and I'll tell you a story that could be 10 minutes, but it's going to be like one. But it's one that I like to tell often, and John's heard it. My dad was not a small group leader, and my dad is not have a great dad, godly dad, loves Jesus. My parents both loved Christ, and they wanted to serve in our student ministry, but they did not want to lead groups. And so they were like, we'll do logistical roles. But one of the things, so you pointed at this, Hannah, that couples can serve together. I think home groups or mixed groups with couples leading it are incredibly powerful. I think that you can create an environment where you have a lot of options for students to hang out and connect, and you put men and women leaders out there. But I just remember, before we discount the importance of that voice, like we said, when homes are so sparse, do you know if there's a godly man or woman pouring into both young men and young women? But I remember there was a girl who the quote was, I can say it in here, I can't always say it from stage depending on who I'm preaching to, but she just said she was going to church during bus ministry time. If you remember bus ministry, some of your churches may do it, but it was hard. We bussed in like 300 or 400 kids. It seemed like, or 200 or 300 kids every week. And my dad was just kind of crowd control, and he sat out in this big area and he kept his eyes open. And there was this girl that would sit down near him, and that Mr. Will was my dad's name was Will, but Mr. Will is who he was, and short white hair at like 45. And they loved to sit and talk, probably because he looked like a tiny Santa, but they would want to talk with him. And so he just 2 or 3 times he would talk with this girl, and she'd be sitting on the couches in the outer area. Well, then at one point they went to a kids camp, and she was a leader, and the statement that she made with a group of leaders around, and she was comfortable because she knew my dad, she knew several other people. She said, I'm just going to end up being pregnant and in a trailer like my family. And I don't know how in the world I'm going to get out of here. And she said, all I hear are these big speakers. This is the 90s. All I hear are these big speakers who tell me about how God has these huge plans, and God wants you to be a big CEO and a leader of this or whatever. And I'm just not going to be that. I'm probably going to end up barefoot, pregnant in a trailer, and not married like my mom and my sisters. And my dad stopped her, and I think her name was Janine. I always say Janine, but he looked at her and said, Janine, you need to stop, and you need to understand that God has called you to be whatever he has called you to be. And nobody gets to lay claim on that. And you just need to understand that you are loved and valued, and you can be what God calls you to be, no matter what it is. And he, he said that, and then he moves on out of his day. But there's an opportunity to say that. Well, a decade later, we get a postcard in the mail. And I was not at that event, but a postcard later we get in the mail. My dad picks it up, he reads it, and he just smiles, and he hands it to me. Hadn't heard from this girl in a decade. And I'm in high school now, and he didn't even know what had become of her, but he hands it to it, and it says, hey, dear Mr. Will, I just want to let you know, thank you for telling me that I could do anything, because now I'm a missionary in Romania on the field. And I did that because what you told me. So thank you for helping me serve Jesus. And I think that we give up those moments because young women need healthy and godly men, and they need healthy and godly women pouring into them, and boys and young men need the same thing. But creating those moments where both genders, whether it's as a couple, whatever that looks like, can pour in is important. So if you're not thinking about that, please do.
And that was so natural. It didn't have to be a big ordeal or anything. He just had created this natural relationship that opened the door for that conversation to happen. And that's all it has to be.
My mom always says it's not who you are that holds you back, it's what you think you're not. And I think that oftentimes people just need to be told that they can be more, that there is a more excellent way in Christ.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, we make it a fact or a point of existence in our student ministry that if you're a leader, when you show up at a student ministry event, that hanging out with adults is for adult time. But when you're in that room, you're with students, you're playing Uno, you're hanging out, you're talking, whatever it may be. And that does make the difference. But we've got about 7 minutes. So Hannah, I want to give you 3 for this one area, and then we'll finish out what we've got planned. Cause what you've been saying is great, by the way. Thank you so much. Let me ask you this question. What are some difficulties that you faced in ministry? And what can we learn from a few of those things?
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about this question. Like I said, I've been super blessed. But like a couple of years ago, conversations started really circulating about women in ministry and what does that look like. And I love the Lord. I love his word. And so I just also really wanted to make sure that what I felt like the Lord was calling me to is this biblical, kind of working through that with people who are very biblically sound and willing to have conversations with me as I navigated that. And I had this one specific conversation where we kind of had a leadership problem. And I was like, if a man is not going to do this, I'm not going to not let these kids hear about Jesus because I'm not a man. I am here, I'm willing, and I want to. I think the Lord has called me and gifted me to do this. And someone said to me, you just have to sit down and be quiet and wait until God puts a man in that role. And that hurt. Like I have never felt such pain in that way of feeling like, man, what you think God has called you to is actually completely wrong. And that's why Mary is my favorite, is because she was the first person to ever share the gospel as a woman. And I think that's like kind of been how I've lived my life ever since that moment of No, I won't sit down and be quiet and wait for a man to come do it when I'm right here. I want there to be awesome men in ministry, and I want there to be awesome women in ministry. I want it to be a partnership, and us to serve well together. And so I think even just a thought process of being unwilling to let women step into roles because a man should be doing it. Which, like I said, when I was first in ministry, that was never even a thought in my head that someone would think like that. But then to be told that, that is a thought process that exists in some places. And so I think don't be that guy. I guess that's my advice is don't be that guy. You know, and be willing to have these hard conversations about, okay, what does it look like to biblically be a woman in ministry? And walk through that in a kind way with your boys too, so they understand how to support their sisters in Christ. So and also I think, you know, job searching for a long time. I don't know. I can't say this for certain, but maybe it felt like sometimes, well, she's a woman, we're looking for a male to fill this role. You know, different things like that. And I think that could be true anywhere. And I think that's why I've just kind of landed in the place. I know what God's called me to. I'm confident in that. And so I'm just going to serve him wherever he puts me with whatever title.
No, I love that, because I think that at the end, so a woman in ministry who I love and respect, and no, I wish she doesn't like being on video, so she's not here, because I'd love to have all of us together. But one of the things, you know, we talked about is, you know, because like we said, we're sticking this into student ministry and that realm and area, but it was just that she's served all across ministry, and the idea was, and the point was we were talking, she goes, I've been in those environments, and you know, at the end of the day, one, I didn't make it about that, and I didn't make it about the problem that I faced. I made it about what God called me to do. I did that, and I trusted that God would have me in the right place and doing the right thing. And I think so often, like the dog running analogy, or like you said it so well, I'm just trusting that God's putting me in the right place and doing the right thing. And I think so often, just like we can focus on those that we lead and who they are, we get too focused on our own category, whether the fact that we know or not. And this person said to me, what am I, you know, I don't get to control. God controls what I'm doing, and he puts me underneath people who get to control a lot of that. And I trust him in it. She goes, but what am I going to say one day to God when I die? And when God says, well, why didn't you do this? And you say, well, because these people all told me this. And that's not, you know, God doesn't call us to be defiant against leadership. God doesn't call us to attack and to do those things. He doesn't call us to feel sorry and be victims. What he does call us to do is to be obedient no matter what. And often he calls us to suffer. Men, women, any of us. Like our suffering is where we are both honed and God's power is seen. And I love the way that you said that. I think those challenges should shape resilience and perspective in us, and make us stronger people. And so I
think too, I don't mind missing out on opportunities when it's things I can't control. I can't control my gender. I can't control that I don't have a certain level of experience. I can't control. There's a number of things I can't control. I don't care if I lose opportunities for those. I care if I lose opportunities because you find me lacking in character, if you find me lacking in integrity. And those are things that I can control and I can do something about. And so if I just focus on those things, God's going to bring the opportunities to me.
Well, and so often the question, no matter what the situation is, the question gets asked. We always ask the question, why me? And we should be asking the question, if you look at scripture, look at Joseph, look at David in the wilderness. Like, you look at these people, and the question shouldn't be, why me? The question should be, so what are you teaching me? Because God hasn't forgotten you. It's funny that we conveniently trust in God's sovereignty as long as we're in control. And then we're not in control. We're like, I don't think God knows what he's doing. Why is this me? And Hannah, I think your story is such a beautiful story of that. I mean, you've had a lot of blessings along the way. You've had a lot, but all of us, we've had blessings and struggles. And if we're going to say, when you look at young women in your ministry, and don't just see them for a category first, see what God's doing in them and working in them, well, then we got to live that way too. Right. And I think that what you're saying is so good. I'd encourage all of you, as we get ready to kind of close this out within 1 minute. that for you as a student pastor's believer, listen, you can check out more of what we do on shapingstudentministry.com, but we have resources and all of the things that you need to do student ministry, especially people like Hannah that are all over the country that just want to see young men and young women in student ministry be discipled and to bring leaders along with them. And so I'll end you by saying we kind of recap it. Develop your leaders as people first. Call out and affirm their gifts, because if you don't see their gifts, most people won't either at first. Celebrate God's design and the differences between men and women, and help them share those gifts. And you need to create visible opportunities for your young women to serve and to be seen and recognized. And so I just want to tell you, we're going to highlight this before we leave. Hannah's podcast, Where My Girls At, is coming to the SSM Network September 24th. And so we'll put the links hopefully in there. I'm not always good at remembering how to do all that, but we're going to make it happen. But you can just go to youtube.com and then it's Shaping Student Ministry. Just search it up on YouTube and subscribe. And you're going to see Hannah. You're also going to see it posted throughout this book. And so, Hannah, thank you for investing in us tonight. Thank you for your wisdom and your heart for the next generation, and for your giftings as well, because we're grateful for that. We get to be co-laborers with you. And leaders, listen, here are 2 quick steps, okay? I'm going to repeat them. First, support Hannah's new podcast, Where My Girls At. It launches September 24th, and you can find it on Facebook if you search for Shaping Student Ministry. Just click on it, and then you're going to get an update, bing, on the 24th that Hannah's got a new podcast. Second, listen, we want you to commit to leveling up each month. So next month, we're going to be leveling up with Stephen Monroe from he is from a really crazy company that we first met called Next Level Media. And so most of us in this room, if we were going to lose our salvation, we'd have done it during a tech issue. And so we're going to talk with a guy who does it for a living. And so Stephen's going to come on with us and talk about the idea of doing real world text such fixes. I'm sorry, on a budget. Can't read tonight. But listen, if tonight we sparked questions or ideas, we want you to drop them in the comments. Keep commenting as long as you want to. Because we're going to have you here. We're going to pull those questions and we plan on answering them. But next month, you're going to see it pop up to be with Stephen Monroe. We'll see you then. Hannah, thank you. John,
thanks,
thank
guys.
you. Thank you for our tech support, keeping us alive and running tonight. So we love you guys. We'll see you soon.
Bye.